Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we've got another banger for you guys. We've got the best 10 brawlers to max out within this current meta. Every single season I do this, so you guys know where to put your power points and your resources into. So before we jump into the video, then make sure you use the create code. That'd be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's hop into it. Alright guys, so jumping into the 10th best brawler to max out in the meta right now, we have it Gray. So Gray is a really underrated brawler within the meta right now. I hardly ever see him banned out, and that's actually one reason why I'd actually recommend maxing him out, because you're gonna get a chance to use him pretty much all of the time. It's not a brawler that you necessarily like first pick on every single Power League mode, but he's a secret assassin. He's so strong on so many maps and modes right now. Whenever I'm playing Power League, I always try to pick Gray, especially towards the end of draft. So he's really strong in Bounty right now, whether that be a layer cake or try season. Really good in Brawl. That's going to be his best mode, because of course his teleport can really hard counter some of those throws or squishier brawlers down the lane. And then you've also got some weirder maps, maybe like on Hot Zone, Parallel and Split. He's actually really strong first pick on those maps. And then even some a bit spontaneous maps like Kaboom Canyon and Crystal Arcade. But again, the main reason why he's so strong, he's got the gadget that can of course shoot through walls and pull them towards you, and most of the time you can end up just two tapping the brawlers after that and then cycle your super really well. I just think Gray is a fantastic brawler and people still underrate him, so you can easily pick him in Power League. So next up we have the 9th best brawler to max out, which is Carl. So just before we talk about Carl and how good he is, I didn't want to include the same 4 brawlers which I do every single video, by the way. So they're going to be the best brawlers to max out, like Penny, B, Max, and Janet. Those are going to be the 4 best. They're the 4 best brawlers in the game. Well, some of them. So I didn't want to just continue with that list and do the same brawlers every single time. So if you're wondering why they're not on here, it's because of that reason. But anyways, jumping into the list then. So at number 9 we have Carl. So Carl is still a really strong brawler, although he has his glaring counters. I feel more often than not in this meta, especially in competitive, I see Carl being drafted towards the end. People still kind of forget to include some Carl counters in your draft, and he's that assassin brawler of course with his flying hook, and you can pretty much play him everywhere. He's really dangerous as a last pick, literally in every single game mode. You know, heist, he's really good at just getting in behind enemy lines. You know, Brawl, getting a quick goal, gem grab, killing the gem carrier, bounty, getting that first star, and even in knockout I've seen him use quite a fair amount. So yeah, Carl is fantastic brawler to max out right now. So next up, on the 8th best brawler to max out within this meta, I've gone with a thrower. So me personally, I've gone for Sprout, because that is my favorite one out of like the 3 kind of knockout slash bounty brawlers. But whether that be a Tick or whether that be a Grom, it is up to you. But what I'm saying is that you definitely need to max out one of those, because especially on knockout and bounty, those brawlers are so incredibly strong. But not even being drafted towards the end now. You know, typically in a draft you'd have like a Sprout as maybe like towards the end of the draft to counter some specific brawlers, but people are just picking throwers at the beginning of the draft, just showcasing how strong they are right now. So I'd actually recommend Sprout more than the others, even though Sprout's not the best on ladder. It's just because he's actually not banned as nowhere near as often as Tick and Grom. You know, people just find Grom and Tick way more annoying than Sprout, but Sprout again is that hard carry brawler. If you get the right matchup, you can absolutely dominate, and he's still pretty decent in some areas as well. You know, backyard bowl is back in the rotation. You know, field goal, you can even use him as a last pick. There's quite a few scenarios where you can pick Sprout still. So next up, as his 7th best brawler to max out, we have Eve. So again, just like Gray, I feel Eve is so underappreciated within this meta, especially since the mythic gear came out. You can actually play Eve on other maps that don't revolve around water. She's still really strong. I feel like as people start to learn the mythic gear and just play Eve a lot more, she might be even higher within the meta. But specifically when it comes down to bounty and knockout, on some maps in Hot Zone, you know, some maps in heist as well, Kaboom Canyon and Safe Zone where there's a lot of water, she's a fantastic option. The main reason being is because she's one of those long range brawlers that doesn't actually suffer too much against those aggro picks because of that gadget. You can get away from like a Fang Dash or like a Carl Super or something like that. So I just think Eve is a really flexible brawler and definitely worth maxing out. So next up, as his 6th best brawler to max out right now, we've gone with Bonnie. So Bonnie still continues to be one of the strongest brawlers within the game. She's often pretty underrated, but I'd say she's always been consistently in the top 20, in the top 15 of the meta. And the main reason why she's shining a lot more is because there's certain maps in the game right now where unbreakable walls can be really annoying. So you can easily use Bonnie as like a mid and then use your super just to destroy those squishy brawlers on the lane that are really popping off right now. have. You know, there's certain maps like field goal, for example, where throwers or squishy brawlers will dominate, and that's where Bonnie really comes to play. And also the thing I love about Bonnie, of course, is within her mechanics, she can literally turn the tides in your favor so easily. She can make a really good situation, well, a decent situation into a really good one with her super. So, you know, maps like Backyard Bowl, for example, you can use your HP for a lot of pressure, and then of course your super can literally jump onto anyone and kill them. You know, Bounty as well, she's normally better towards the end of the draft stage. Heist, she's literally her best game mode. You know, Kaboom Canyon, you can just launch yourself onto the safe and get consistent damage. Same with Safe Zone, and it's nothing you can really counter against Bonnie except for maybe the glaring obvious counter in Colette, but other than that, she's just really consistent across the board. Next up, as the 5th best brawler to max out within this meta, we have Amber. So Amber is really going up in the meta. The brand new mythic gear is making her a lot stronger. She hasn't really been seen too much in competitive. I think as time goes on, she'll be a lot more stronger in competitive, but for now, I still think in Power League, I pick her quite often, and she's a fantastic option. So of course, in a hot zone, it's always been her best game mode, but I think even more so now, you know, enemies are basically certain to actually take that super damage because of the slow, so that's a really strong thing. You know, there's certain maps as well where it's really toxic and heist. You know, Kaboom Canyon, you can just put your super on one lane and then you only have maybe a couple of other lanes to go through. Same with Safe Zone as well. There's just so many maps in the game where just one super will literally just win you the lane without you even having to do anything. So of course this one's a little bit more expensive than all of the other options because you probably need the mythic gear to actually get the most value out of Amber. But if you've got a lot of spare coins and you like playing Amber, she's a fantastic brawler to max out right. So next up, as the 4th best brawler to max out right now, we have Meg. So although I'm putting her on this list, I may be a little bit careful because I expect maybe a mid-season balance change, but I still expect her afterwards to be pretty strong because, of course, she's got this rework. We don't want to just make her trash straight away. But anyways, Meg right now has to be probably the best brawler in the game, if not top 5 easily right now. She's being played literally everywhere. Every single game mode she's being played, and she's a pretty easy brawler to play because that Meg has just such an easy range that she's just going to be able to melt literally everyone. So in every single game mode she's being drafted. You know, there's maybe a few maps out of the Power League rotation where she's not being picked, but you've seen within my video yesterday, I think a lot of people highlighted just how strong Meg is right now. So for me, she's definitely a must max out, and just free trophies, whether it's showdown or just ladder or in Power League, you're basically guaranteed if you win if you have Meg on your team. So next up, as the 3rd best brawler to max out right now, we have Otis. So Otis still continues to be one of the best brawlers in the game. One really good reason as to why he's good to max out is because I barely see him banned out literally ever. So he's a really safe pick in pretty much every single game mode and every setting I see. Otis as a fantastic option because, as always, you got to be really careful of those 6th picks, you know, whether they're really aggressive. You know, Otis can literally hard counter every single aggro brawler in the game. So of course he's a fantastic option. He's basically the modern day Gale. You know, Gale is just terrible right now. Otis just fills the gap, and even better because his range really excels, and he can actually have a decent matchup against some longer range brawlers as well, because people always underestimate his range. But yeah, Otis, plain and simple, he is always going to be one of the best brawlers in the game, so it's pretty safe to actually max him out. So next up, as his 2nd best brawler to max out in this meta, we have Gus. So Gus is a fantastic option to max out because I don't think he's going to be nerfed anytime soon. He's always forgotten about in Power League. He's literally never banned, so it's always safe. On my free-to-play account, he's one of my only maxed out brawlers, and he always pops off, whether that be in gem grab as a gem carry, whether it be a longer range Brawl map, or he can just fill in on as a mid in pretty much every Brawl map. Bounty, he's a fantastic option because, again, you know, maps like Shooting Star, people typically ban like Piper and Nanny, and then people just forget about Gus, but he's got such fantastic slaying power, and he can also combine with assassins with that super really well. I don't think there's really any scenario where Gus isn't a really solid option. So for me, you know, even though he's not the strongest brawler in the game, I just think he's so easy to use and so strong, especially with his Kuka pop-up. And finally, moving on to the best brawler to max out right now, we have RT. So RT, I think I put as the best brawler in the game a few videos ago, but you know, it's pretty hard not to put him as the best brawler to max out because he literally is the best brawler, and the main reason being is because he's so versatile. Normally I put the most versatile brawlers towards the top of my rankings, so in some ways can be a little bit biased, but RT, I just think he fills every single gap. So if you look at all the maps in the rotation or just in the game, he can just be so solid on all of them. So, you know, Shooting Star, the longest range map in the game, is a really good option because he'll actually counter those sharpshooters, especially with his gadget. And then you look at the more close range maps, you know, even maps like Hot Potato, he can actually still be pretty decent because he can go into a split form and, you know, two-shot so many of the tankier brawlers. So he's just so versatile, and there's hardly any ways to counter him. You know, there's maybe a few ways to counter him if he misses a few shots, but it's just dependent on how good of an RT you are. So for me, he's so solid, and I don't really see him getting any worse in the meta. Maybe a few small nerfs in the future, but I still think he's going to be one of the best brawlers for a long time. Alright guys, it's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know who you think is the best brawler to max out in the game right now. You know, you could easily just go off, you know, like meta ranking videos, which we'll do a tier list in a few days time. But I think overall, these are the best brawlers to max out. Of course, I didn't mention some of the real, you know, usual culprits because it's just pretty boring, you know, saying that B, Max, Penny, and Janet, you know, just saying them every single tier list it gets a bit repetitive. So at least give you guys a few other options because hopefully you've already got them maxed out. You know, still a few other brawlers that I didn't mention, you know, like Stu, super versatile, you know, Ash, having an assassin as a power 11 is a really good option, and then maybe a few others as well, you know. Trying to think off the top of my head, like, you know, Lola's pretty decent. Daryl is a good last pick sometimes. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.